Good afternoon, Katie Benoit with NBC 10 News here. I'm in Dedham, where opening statements just wrapped up in Karen Read's second murder trial. There was also a couple of witnesses who took the stand today, but those opening statements lasted for about 2 hours. And then the rest of the day was two witnesses took the stand. They included a Canton firefighter, Timothy Nuttall, as well as Kerry Roberts, who was with Karen Read the morning they went looking for John O'Keefe. And I'm joined by Boston criminal defense attorney Peter Elikann. How are you today, Peter?
Very good, thank you.
No, you've been following this case very closely. What did you think of opening statements?
I thought the opening statements were both extraordinary. They were a master class in how to give an opening statement. I've been a member of the bar for more than 4 decades, and I don't think I've ever seen it done a finer job. It is going to be interesting to see how the evidence actually comes out of trial, because they both seem to argue that they had an airtight case and that it wasn't just what people were saying, but that science would prove it. DNA, medical things, cell phone records, etc. They said that both said that they really had the science to pretty much give a conclusive, rationale for everything that went on. And the other thing that they did that just is so wonderful that we lawyers really admire is that in an opening, you tell a story, you lay it, and they both did that in very story-like fashion. Like, this is what happened next, this is how it all unfolded. And it really, pieced together, and each one sounded very good and logical. And so I am just fascinated to see how this evidence actually comes in and whether they can really prove what they were saying.
Mm-hmm. No, in the defense's opening statement, they mentioned Trooper Michael Proctor, who was recently fired from Massachusetts State Police. Now, obviously, this was something different this time around. How do you think this plays into the case?
I think that Proctor is going to continue to be a real detriment to the prosecution. It's where really their Achilles heel. I don't know that it'll be any worse than the first trial, because at the first trial, his reputation was just run through the mud, and he was already on, I think, kind of disciplinary action had already begun. Now that he's actually been fired from the job because of his action on this case, I don't know how it could be any worse. But he is going to have to testify, I believe. First of all, you have the lead investigator of an entire murder charge. You usually have them testify, but even if the prosecution didn't want to have him testify, the defense would bring him in because he's such a strong witness on their behalf. So the prosecution may want to bring him in first to try to see what they can head off at the past and own up to. But either way, I think he's going to testify, and there's just no way he's going to be helpful to the prosecution. But the prosecution has anticipated that. They know that. So I'm sure they have a strategy to try to do the best they can with it.
Mm-hmm. And then we also heard from some of the first witnesses today in this case. And something I thought was interesting to me from the last trial, Kerry Roberts was called today. And in the first trial, she wasn't called until a couple weeks in. And we actually heard from her, I believe, the same day as Jennifer McCabe in the first trial, which was a really high-profile witness. What is kind of the strategy between mixing up the witness list?
I haven't quite figured out their strategy yet. I think it will all reveal itself in time. But I know that even as far as the witnesses, this new prosecutor, Hank Brennan, who has an extraordinarily good reputation as a criminal defense attorney, and he's brought into this case especially, he wants to make the case, I think, a lot shorter, a lot more succinct, punchier, and kind of a cleaner case, in that he's already stated in his witness list that they have half the number of people on the witness list. So they're not going to go out and bore people, I think, and have witnesses who really don't have much to say, or really, some attorneys do that. They put on witnesses just to see as many as they can, just to see if anything hits the wall and sticks. But he's going to be much more focused. So he definitely has a rationale where he's, again, laying out a story piece by piece by piece. And that's why he started out with somebody on the scene who claims that she confessed the offense to him, saying, "I hit him," although nobody recorded. He certainly, this paramedic certainly never told anybody that, which was surprising, because normally, even if you're not a great legal expert or anything, you see a body that's dying or dead, and somebody essentially commits, "I did it," you would usually think that you would tell somebody or write it down in a report or something like that. So, but there's definitely a well thought out scheme to how the prosecution and the order that they are calling the witnesses.
Mhm. And then as far as today at openings, we also saw the prosecution bring up a clip of Karen Read on Dateline. We got a new part of this trial that there was going to be some interviews being shown for the jury. Are you surprised by that move at all? Or did you, think the Dateline interview was something that they might decide to play for the jury, or could it have really been anything?
They did in advance request permission and let people know they would be showing videos, and that's always a good thing to not just say what someone says, but show it. Show rather than just tell. And so, increasingly in trials, we see a lot more of either graphs or charts or videos or photos or something. And the old saying, "A picture is worth 1,000 words." Really is true. In this one, I know that when the defense then stood up, they just said, well, she was referring to something else entirely, a different period of time. And so they kind of tried to, defense kind of knock that video out of the box and said that it was really irrelevant. So again, we can see it was amazing just seeing the two sides go to battle just in their openings.
Mm-hmm. A bunch of witnesses will be in the courtroom this week. We also learned today the ARCO experts, they'd like them to come in for questioning for voir dire on Friday. This is kind of one of those topics that has kind of kept going in the case. There's been a lot of motions being filed, things like that, to do with these ARCO witnesses that were originally hired by the federal government. Having this hearing on Friday, how do you think that plays into the trial?
I think that those ARCO witnesses are probably the strongest thing that the defense has, that these were witnesses who originally had nothing to do with this case. The feds who were investigating it got this independent company who specializes in this. And these guys reviewed the evidence, and their conclusion was that the injuries were absolutely inconsistent with being hit by a car. So that would be the whole case right there if the jury were to believe these ARCO witnesses. So they're extremely crucial and important for the defense. And I believe they are going to come in one way or another. There could be certain testimony that's a bit limited, but they are going to come in, and they are going to be really a centerpiece of the entire defense.
Alrighty, well, thank you so much for your insight, Peter. I'll be in the courtroom for the rest of the week, and I'll have updates both on X, on air, and online.
Thanks so much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
How do you think the opening statements were? It seems like you guys had a pretty good, you pretty fiery.
I feel great. Today went well. We prepped hard, and I'm just proud of my team. I can't be prouder, and I feel fortunate to have them, and we've got the truth, so we just forge ahead.
You think you want to testify?
There we go. Great as always.
Careful. Karen, we didn't hear the words framed. Those were words used during the first trial. We didn't hear that exact language. We heard corruption. We heard deceit. Is this a strategy?
We don't like reruns.
All right, everybody, we're back. I'm Gene Valicenti. We're joining our Katie Benoit, who's going to be up at the trial every day. Katie, I know you just spoke to one of our consultants, one of our legal consultants, will be joining us. Just quickly, your take on closing arguments today. Did the jury? Well, they seem like they were taking it in, paying attention. This is, I think, the best attention span you're going to get. They're fresh. They're ready to go. They're listening to the story, so to speak. What was your take?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the jury was paying attention. They did not take notes during opening statements, since technically they're not really supposed to consider opening statements as part of the evidence. I spoke with Peter a couple weeks ago about that, but they were paying attention. They had their notepads out as these first witnesses were called to the scene, called to the stand, but they seemed very engaged when opening statements were happening. They were looking at the attorneys, and they were writing down notes when those first witnesses came on the stand.
Yeah, fundamentally, has anything changed from the initial defense? I was in the car. He went in the house. That's the last I saw of him. I didn't kill him. Somebody else did. And same thing on the state's side, the case against her. Any angle, anything you noticed that's changed substantially?
There was a bit of a change in opening statements today for the defense because Trooper Michael Proctor has been fired from Massachusetts State Police. So
Okay.
they really used that, in their opening statements today, as well as just talking kind of about the police connections in the case as well. So that was a little bit different, focusing on how the police were connected and Trooper Michael Proctor and the investigation into the case.
But aside from that nutshell defense, I was sitting in the car, he went in, that's the last I saw of him. That hasn't changed.
Yep, it's the same defense pretty much as last time.
Right.
This time around, Alan Jackson did deliver opening statements. He didn't last time. David Unetti did. So that was a little bit different this time around, but
Right.
the defense remains the same this time around.
People are watching the Netflix series, they're watching other series on cable TV, and how do they explain her allegedly hitting him in the driveway, but the body is found some distance away on the other end of the lawn? How do they explain that?
Mm-hmm. So that was something that was brought up in opening statements today by the Commonwealth. So they say allegedly she, put her car in reverse and was first driving away, and then allegedly put her car in reverse and hit John. So it was kind of if they're going to do a view of the crime scene, the jury, so they'll get to see exactly where it happened at some point. But it was by the flagpole, which was up by the driveway. But she was parked kind of near the flagpole allegedly, and the defense says she was driving away and then allegedly backed up into John O'Keefe.
But I don't know if you know this or not, but again, people are watching the Netflix series and the others. How does he get from the driveway, which is where the car would have been, even if it's backing up, over to the flag pole? Are we going to hear about tire tracks? Are we going to hear about some other angle on this, or has that already been discussed?
Mm-hmm. So in the first trial, this was discussed, but she actually was pulled up on the sidewalk kind of near the flagpole. So she wasn't actually in the driveway that night. She kind of on the side of the road, if that makes sense, up a little bit further from the house. And that's where she was parked. A couple witnesses alleged they saw her car that night. So it was up a little bit more from the driveway.
All right, stay with us. I want to throw some sound bites here. This is Hank Brennan, who's the special prosecutor now. It's basically his case for the state. Let's roll that.
On a dash cam video, you'll hear through testimony, he went back to that man who's John O'Keefe. He went back to him, and that crew, coordinated effort, they did everything they could to save his life. They got on their knees, they began CPR, and firefighter Nuttall will explain as he kneeled over John O'Keefe, he looked up, and the defendant approached him, and you'll see it on the video. Now, he wanted any information, because when you're trying to save someone, you want to know, are they on drugs, medication, do they have a heart condition? And he looked up at Miss Reed, and he said, what happened? And you'll hear her words through firefighter Nuttall. She said, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him.
Now, I know the defense went out of their way to say that that was taken out of context. They were making it sound like it was almost immediate to the crime, where she was referring later when the body was found and trying to make sense of it. Let's stay with us. Let's play Alan Jackson now. It's his case to defend. Alan Jackson.
Seeing here in this courtroom in the coming weeks is not just a story of a tragic loss. And make no mistake, John O'Keefe's death is and was a tragic and tragic loss. But the story you'll hear is about an investigation that was riddled with errors from the beginning, a rush to judgment, conflicted and corrupted from the start. Corrupted by bias, corrupted by incompetence, and corrupted by deceit. Finally, it was corrupted by a deliberate effort to avoid and to cover up the very truth that you are seeking. You'll find when you hear the evidence that the Commonwealth's case is the literal definition of reasonable doubt.
Well, they're certainly trying to sow reasonable doubt there right off the get-go. One of the first witnesses up was that firefighter who responded that initial day. Why don't you set that up, because we've got a soundbite from him. What do you recall from that testimony today, the firefighter?
Sure. So he came on the stand, and he was the one that said, Reed said at the scene, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him.
Right.
But there was on cross-examination, the defense kind of brought up some inconsistencies with his testimony, saying the first time around in the first trial last year, he only said, I hit him twice. So there was a little bit of a difference in the statements. So that was something that came up at the trial today. But we did hear from that firefighter that was there on the scene that morning.
And the defense is saying, I can't.
Breathing.
No, go ahead, roll that. My error. Go ahead and roll that.
I checked for signs of life, the carotid, the signs of breathing. I found none. From there, we had ascertained that there is no signs of life. As I was checking that, the other two individuals on the ambulance came and met me, and they began doing the same thing, just to check. I mean, sometimes you can look and you can miss. So the other paramedic, Anthony Flamati, started checking my work, and then we kind of went from there. But I found no signs of life in my initial.
All right. The defense is saying when she says, I hit him, it's not an admission. It's more of a person hysterically wondering, did I hit him? Did I hit him? That's the context that they're trying to say was left out by the state. All right, finally, Karen Read, outside court. You pointed out that she can speak, even though her lawyers and prosecutors have a gag order on them. We'll hear from her coming and going. Let's listen.
What do you think of the test?
Karen, how are you feeling after day one?
How do you think the opening statements were? It seemed like you guys had a pretty good, you pretty fiery.
I feel great. Today went well. We prepped hard, and I'm just proud of my team. I can't be prouder, and I feel fortunate to have them, and we've got the truth, so we just forge ahead.
You think you want to testify?
There we go.
Great as always. buddy.
Careful. Karen, we didn't hear the words framed. Those were words used during the first trial. We didn't hear that exact language. We heard corruption. We heard deceit. Is this a strategy?
We don't like reruns.
Well, listen, the celebrity defendant, we're going to hear from her coming and going. Are they giving you a list of witnesses for the next day? Do you know that? We know what to expect tomorrow.
So there's 150 witnesses altogether that could be called, but it sounds like tomorrow it's likely that Kerry Roberts will be back on the stands. Usually when someone comes in and they don't finish for the day, they come back on the stand the next day. That's been the usual case in the last trial. So I'm expecting she'll be back. Sometimes during the first trial, when the defense was able to talk to us, they would let us know outside of court who might be coming in to testify the next day, especially if it was a big witness. But obviously, they're not allowed to talk to us anymore. So,
all right, full day today, day one, the Karen Read retrial. We've already gone through opening statements, plus some witnesses called. Katie, you stay up there. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
Sounds good.
This has been continuing Team 10 coverage of the Karen Read retrial. Remember, you can watch live coverage on our NBC 10 YouTube page. For now, I'm Gene Valicenti.